Welcome back to The Loop, your weekly dose of all things property management. I'm your host, Colin Stewart, and each week we dive into the latest trends, strategies, and stories shaping the property management world. In today's episode, we're talking to Helen Shi, founder of Stay With Q, about her journey from Harvard to marketing to branding into short-term rentals and beyond, and how one cabin became a property management business, what she learned doing it, and ultimately selling that business, and what she's going to do next. Helen, welcome to the show. Talk to me about Harvard to short-term rentals. It seems like my brain can't understand the jump. And so talk to me about the journey.
Happy to be here. Thank you for having me on. Well, it's been a eventful journey. I did many various things in between. I did work for a couple of years in branding and marketing. I was always kind of interested in that. And at Harvard, my background was in visual arts and psychology, so it kind of just delved into that side of things, the marketing side of things, a little bit creative and also a little bit on the logic, psychology sort of thing. Didn't love working in a company and always wanted to realize my dream of working for myself. Started a travel company with my husband because of, travel once again, but do not recommend working with your spouse on a company. Went down that road, wouldn't recommend, but did learn a lot of things from it. And I ended up going after that to founding a tea company. It's a sort of a direct to consumers tea subscription to curb your period cramps. And that is something I worked on for about a year, did a Kickstarter, went on this entire journey, did get some interesting results out of it. And it was really fun for that year. But at the end of the day, it wasn't something I was really interested in working on. I went on this rabbit hole of on Bigger Pockets, kind of pointed me in the direction of the Smoky Mountains, Tennessee in that period. And that was right before COVID, before the real estate market sort of boomed and all the prices went insane. So I started with one cabin there, did great, even with the COVID era. It was a little scary at first, but then everybody knows how travel boomed after COVID. So it did fantastic. And I thought, hey, maybe I could manage properties for other people, because after I took on the cabin, it did roughly 2 to 3x of what the old property management company did with that cabin in terms of revenue. So, hey, I thought I could do this for other people and marketed a little bit myself on the internet and got a few clients and just kind of snowballed from there.
So many questions, but I'll try and keep them focused just for the purpose of, not being a 4-hour episode. What do you think was like when you look back at those days, what were some of the first big kind of multipliers that you implemented and would attribute some of that growth to?
I think one is the different types of marketing and more channels that we were on. Pictures, we took really great pictures that didn't really have before. People were super interested in all the online marketing. A lot of things were being done offline for repeat guests. We focused a lot on the online photos, listing, descriptions, all of that. For descriptions, we did bullet points, made it super clear, not a huge jumble of words. We did a few updates, like put in a little arcade there, and those things were, they're everywhere now. But at that time in 2019, not many arcades and different types of amenities inside homes. It wasn't typical, I guess. And I think pricing, we did do kind of pricing edits every couple of days, which I'm sure the big companies, PM companies didn't do at the time. So depending on demand, depending on how things booked out, I kept playing with the pricing as well.
I hear that. At what point you jump in, you're self-managing it, where you're like, you know what? I want to double, triple, quadruple down on this investment and just go crazy.
Yeah, very quickly, I would say. I started it and I was like, wow, this is so fun. And I get to decorate this house however I want. I can add amenities that I've always wanted to do, to use. And it's somewhere that I could use to vacation as well. This is amazing. But of course, with purchasing houses and investing, that comes cash and money and all the things. So I sat down with my husband. I was like, can we buy another house or what do you think? He gave me the idea of trying to go into property management, managing for other people, getting some cash flow that way, and maybe we can put it back into our portfolio. And that's actually just kind of how it started.
I love it. So if I'm talking to a future aspiring short-term rental property management company owner, all I have to tell them is drive from California to the Smoky Mountains and you'll just get clients? Or was there something special you did to kind of find and reach out to other owners within the area?
Yeah, I did several things. One is we looked into the databases of who owned rentals in that area. This is all, public information. You can go to the county assessor's website, see all the houses, and it's really easy in the Smoky Mountains area to know who have rental properties, like short-term rental properties. One, because almost everything there is short-term rentals. It's such a big vacation market. You don't really have to separate out the long-term versus the short-term rentals when looking up the data. And secondly, a lot of them are concentrated in communities. So, for example, the Brothers Cove community or the community that we bought in, the Eagles Crest community. If you know where the communities are and the rough addresses within that boundary, almost everything inside those communities are short-term rentals. So we basically scraped data. I say we because my husband is a tech person. I just, he's my free tech tool. He scraped data on who, all of this information and who owned these cabins and basically compiled this list. And I was able to search up the contact information for these people. And I did postcards. I also did text messages. And the first, I think, 2 clients I got from those methods.
Right on. And so as you transitioned from early days of just kind of scrappiness, how did the business evolve from Helen doing everything to kind of the peak of where you got it?
Yeah. So for the first, I would say 2, 3 years, it was really Helen doing everything. And I never really worked on marketing too much afterwards. So that did help with the workload a little bit more. I basically just opened a Google page and a Yelp page and people started contacting me from that. The COVID boom really helped because so many people were getting into vacation rental real estate. So a lot of natural reach outs that way. So I didn't work too much on growing the business. So for those 2, 3 years, I really just worked on the workflows of every day, managing guest communications, managing owner relationships, maintaining the cabins, things like that. And it just kind of grew naturally. After those few years, I did start with a virtual assistant in the Philippines. She worked with me for about a year. And then I kind of found that the cultural gap and the language gap was still kind of affecting my business. So then I started hiring for US based property manager, assistant property manager. And I, have one that worked for me successfully for the last 2 years, I would say, of the business. And that has been a great help.
It seems like there was a real intention around staying kind of boutique as opposed to hyperscaling and getting to as many doors as we could for as cheaply as we possibly could. Can you talk to me about that?
Yeah, for sure. I think for me, I always loved the flexibility that entrepreneurship really can bring you. Flexibility and the way to work less. I guess I wasn't interested in entrepreneurship for the sake of making as much money as you can and working more and longer. So instead of trying to really scale, I really tried to just make the business my own and just keep as much margin as I can, but also doing, not too much work. So for me, it was always just kind of slowly growing the business, scaling it naturally, and being able to kind of provide that boutique service to my owners and the guests. The guests had a really hands-on approach. They could always reach me directly. I did have an assistant property manager to, go through stuff and help me, but they could always reach me and the owners as well. Instead of calling a PM company, for example, Vacasa, and reaching 100 different type of people and not knowing who is actually responsible for your cabin, always reach me. And I am literally the one who will be talking to the guests and the coordinating the vendors.
Totally. When you did bring them on, like I remember one of my first hires and kind of it was so hard to let go of things that I thought were core to me that only I could do. And then there's this slow realization that I'm actually like bad at a lot of things that I think I'm great at. What's something that became harder as the portfolio grew?
I think a knowledge base for the properties. I was actually just working on this today because even if, though I don't manage properties for other owners anymore, I still have my own properties and trying to find a knowledge base to keep all of the information is a pain point that I have right now. And I'm totally open to solutions if you have any. But I think each house has so many tidbits that you have to remember the model number for a vent hood, so you can buy the correct lights for it, where the switch is for the light next to the hot tub. Very, very little minute things that, don't matter, but over time, everything sort of matters in terms of trying to find replacement parts, in terms of answering guest questions, in terms of troubleshooting. To be able to have a good knowledge base for all of that, I think is key. Was a pain point that I had and still have.
I was going to ask, how did you solve it? But it sounds like it's still something that's bothering you?
Yeah, so I used to use Google Docs and put photos and, instruction manuals for appliances and all of that in there, but it just got to be so much. I tried Claude and all of the other AI assistants, telling them things and then asking questions. I don't know if you have this feeling, but sometimes I feel like AI gaslights me a little. I tell them something and then I search for it and they tell me, I don't know,
Mhm.
even though I just told them. So still a little bit pain point there, but I think with so many AI tools and solutions, I'm sure I'll find something sooner or later.
We could go a very different direction for this podcast and kind of dig deep into that. I can point you into a couple of resources after, and I'm happy to dig in. Yeah, I've got a similar knowledge base living on my computer, and I've been playing around and experimenting with a lot. If we change gears just a bit, at what point did you the idea of selling the company come into mind? And like, at what point, like, how far did you make it before you're like, oh, this might be something I want to get rid of, or not get rid of, but put up for sale.
Yeah, a good question. So I think it's something that I've been playing around with, that idea, for the last 2, 3 years. Never pulled the trigger because I did enjoy property management. But over the years, I've been collecting my own rentals as well. So the initial, I guess, purpose of going into property management for other owners was to have this cash base so that I can keep investing back into my own portfolio. And
Right.
I did keep doing that. It did happen. And I think around 2, 3 years ago, I was at a point where I just felt more invigorated by all of the stuff I could do in my own rentals. I loved renovating. I loved curating each amenity and kind of personalizing each house for guests. And I was able to control so much more of my own properties than I could for other owners. I couldn't, force other owners to upgrade this and update that and renovate this. And I was able to have so much more control of my own rental. So at that point, became kind of a chore to do the property management side. It became something I wasn't looking forward to every day anymore. So I think around that point, when I felt like my own rentals were able to subsist me and also became a chore to do property management, that was when I started floating around that idea. I didn't seriously consider it and find a broker to sell the company until about a year ago.
Where it kind of last question, if we kind of look up on the horizon the next 5 years, where do you think the short term rentals in general are heading? Are we going to see more of them, fewer of them? Is the increased competition going to kind of eat itself, or we're going to see a reduction in inventory because people are just getting out of the space? I have no opinions here, and I'm curious what your thoughts are.
Sure. Yeah. I'm still very optimistic about short-term rentals in general. I think there's definitely a very good market for it, but I think it'll just be different from before. Before it was kind of a growing new market when, if it's kind of insane to think about it now, but Airbnb hasn't really been around that long. And you just think about the growth that it has been, and now it's a household name. So I think there's just going to be more competition. It's just a more mature market now. You can't just list anything on Airbnb and just, you know, be able to rent it out anymore. It really has to be a curated space. Just think of it as a hotel and business. I think instead of thinking of as a passive or a part-time thing that somebody can do, you really have to think about it as a product and a business. And I think it's just going to draw more probably either property managers or people who have a few rentals and can scale it a little bit or have the cash to be able to make a product that's really nice. I think it's just going to draw those kind of people to the market instead of the mom and pop, rent your home out sort of thing.
Helen, thank you so much for coming on the show. If people are curious about your journey, what comes next, what's the best way for them to get in touch?
Yeah. You can email me at my new brand is Stay Fable, and they can email me at helen@stayfable.com. I'm also in the middle of setting up the website, stayfable.com, as well as Instagram accounts and all of that, but don't quite have those up yet, but feel free to reach out.
Love it. Helen, thanks again for coming on, and thanks to everybody for listening. We'll catch y'all next week.